Laptop on and the screensaver stilled. A new Word document just waiting to be filled. My fingers are poised and mouth a sentence rehearsed. It's 11:59 October 31st. A fresh pot of coffee and plenty of snacks. Defib machine against possible heart attacks. Oh, this last hour's going by way too slow. Oh my god, it's midnight. Here I go.
So first and foremost, what is NaNoWriMo and where can you get some? NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month. It takes place every November, and aspiring writers and actual writers from all over the world take place. It's mostly situated on NaNoWriMo.com or is it org, I don't remember, but there are different groups for different areas around the world, so I'm in the Nashville group. Of course, we weren't meeting up this year, but we did do things like write-ins on Zoom. But basically, you sit down and you try to write a whole big old first draft of a novel, which is around 50,000-ish words, in 1 month. So I did VEDS probably 3 or 4 times before this year, and I always failed at it. Most of the time back in like high school, that's because I just was young and undisciplined and pretty bad at writing. I would be lucky to get through like a week of writing, and I'd be lucky if maybe in 2 of those days I actually hit goal. But probably like my best attempt of it was in 2016 when I tried writing a book. Unfortunately, a couple things kept me from succeeding then too. First off, in 2016, I was still in school. So 1, I was getting creative fulfillment from like my film projects, but 2, those projects meant that I had to focus on them and not necessarily writing a book. I also meant that my schedule was wild and that I always had stuff to do. So just doing NaNoWriMo in school, a lot of respect for people who do it. I don't understand you. But of course, the other big thing that happened in 2016 was the election. And let's just say that when Trump got elected, my mind was on about a billion different things, and none of them was my dumb fantasy book that I was writing. So I had a lot of other stuff on my mind that semester. And I also just went into it with kind of a bad attitude. Not that I didn't want to do it or that I wasn't excited. I took the wrong approach. See, there are all these little tricks you do to boost out your word count in a day, like don't write in contractions and stuff like that. Which is fine in part because like you do need those little boosts at the end of a very hard day, and my book this year barely has any contractions as it is. So no shame there. But when you're going into it with like, okay, how can I cheat the system? This is my goal each day, is to figure out what ways I can boost my word count without actually writing the story. I was distracting myself from what I was actually supposed to be doing. I burnt myself out. That's an exhausting way to write, and it means that whatever you're writing definitely isn't good. I mean, nothing I wrote this year was good either, but it's at least better. And so for the rest of my time at school, I just took off NaNoWriMo. I had enough on my plate as it was. I was getting enough creative fulfillment from my class projects. I still wrote, just not in that format. But for those of you who were around for VEDS 2019, you might remember that I was planning to do NaNoWriMo 2019. It was what my whole theme of VEDS was about. Then November that year came, and I just had so much going on with work and trying to get Myth Month 2 off the ground that I looked at it, it's like, I'm just gonna like trigger my anxiety if I do this. I need to stop. And that was disappointing, and it kind of made me feel like I had failed at something, but it was ultimately a healthy decision. And over the course of the next year, I occasionally went back in my mind to that story that I had been planning to writing and kind of fleshed out 1 or 2 bits of it and been like, oh, this is how I could solve that problem in the plot. But I never put pen to paper. And this year I went back and forth on NaNoWriMo. I kind of thought after not deciding to do it last year that maybe I'm just done with NaNoWriMo. Maybe it's just something that was fun to try every now and then, but it's not the way I create stuff. But then I was like, no, I definitely should do it. So I came up with this idea and I was gonna write it, but it was mainly prose with very little dialogue, and because it took place over millennia, because it was a kind of a book focusing on this one location instead of characters, I couldn't write characters, and I couldn't really write characters bantering, which is really the lifeblood of what I write. That's what gives me energy, is writing characters bantering back and forth. So I decided to go back to that project that I had shelved in 2019. It wasn't necessarily the thing I wanted to write, but it did have a lot of characters, and I had a pretty good idea of what the story was going to be. So on January 1st, I opened up my laptop and I wrote some words. At the beginning of the month, I gave myself the personal goal because I just didn't think I could succeed at the actual goal for NaNoWriMo. And I'm like, 30,000 words, that's doable. And try to keep a streak up to the halfway point, to November 15th. If I can do that, then I can just kind of instill a little discipline, have enough of a story going. I won't be able to finish in November, but maybe finish in December. But as I wrote, I got to build up this momentum, and I kind of started blowing past that goal. I faltered a little bit after the first week. I just did not hit word count for a couple days, and that put me behind, but I was able to crawl my way back up to it. And near the end of the month, I was getting a little worried because I wasn't exactly sure if I was reaching an endpoint, if there even was an endpoint to reach, but eventually I did find it, and I completed it with an amount of words that I've forgotten, but will put up on screen now. Whoa, look at all those words. Now, and I'll be honest, I don't think that the story I wrote was good. I think that there are probably a lot of inconsistencies when I go back and start editing it that I have to figure out. They're just parts of the world that I haven't fleshed out. Some of the characters are pretty weak, and I think the dialogue definitely could be refined. But it's on the page. It's more of a book than I have ever written before. And come December 1st, I was still feeling the momentum of those last couple days, that last kind of end burst. So I was like, I'm just going to write through. I'm going to write the next book in the series of books that I want to write, and then when I get done with that, I'll write the next one. I even set up a new project on NaNoWriMo.com, and I was like, okay, I'll give myself 2 months to write this because I have other things to do. And I wrote for one day. On December 2nd, I just realized how much stuff I had pushed off during NaNoWriMo, and I decided that I couldn't sustain this for another 3 months. I needed to take a break, take care of some other stuff, think through what I was going to be writing because I didn't have a clear plan for the next one. But yeah, for the first year, I completed NaNoWriMo 2020. It has given me a path forward to keep creating, and it was a lot of fun. And if you did NaNoWriMo this year, whether you completed it or not, no shame in not completing it. Like I said, I failed many times before. Let me know down in the description. Add me on NaNoWriMo.com. I'm Caleb Shelton over there. And yeah, that's me. Still not sure how to end videos.